improvement projects that we're in the middle of right now. We're doing some upgrading in our school cafeteria at the high school level. I just submitted this evening before I came here the plan to Video E to look at adding or upgrading the 20-plus-year-old serving line at the high school. We're looking at pass-through warmer, a couple of new ovens at the elementary, some new display boards at the high school so the kids can know what's happening in terms of the week, as well as the menus, and also potentially look at a walk-in refrigerator because we're able to install a new outdoor freezer last year. We are also working for the RFP process, still writing those for a new high school entrance to include a vestibule for safety and security. That's been one of the things I've been trying to push since I got here, is to try to make our school even safer. Not say that it's not safe, but we want to make it even safer. We are also working for the RFP process on an outdoor weight room for the athletes to give us a classroom back in the building for we could have more cost offerings, as well as the transportation space. We are also looking at replacing, hopefully, the HVAC system at the high school, as well as looking at changing the football stand to include a new press box at the stadium. I want to say congratulations to Ms. Karen Camlin again, who retired after 31 and a half years in CBPS. You know, I told the board last month they took advantage of Karen Camlin. And what I mean by that is that Karen had every single role you could think of in the division. And when I was trying to write her job description, I had to take at least 5 pieces of the work that she was doing and spread it out amongst my team. That gives you an idea how much she was doing. We do want to welcome Ms. Dorothy Wright. She comes to us through Florida, North Carolina, Fairfax, Prince William, DC, working multiple school divisions as the new director of federal programs. She will take the position that Karen was in, and the start date is on January 2nd when we return. I also want to thank Ms. Andrea Clement, for all of your support and representing the town council as the school board liaison. And I also want to thank Tara Sieber for many, many years of service. And I'm looking forward to continue to work together. Any questions?
Dr. Zapata? I just have one question. Will you be participating in the Polar Plunge to raise funds for the field trip fund at the school? It is generally on the first Saturday after New Year's, and I'm assuming it'll be the same time. And our police department is participating again, I understand. So I think it's only appropriate that the supervisor participate in the Polar Plunge.
Well, I've been asked that question so many times. I'm not going to dip my toes. I'm okay with that. Stay tuned. I don't know about that yet. Yes, we'll see. I don't know. Okay, we'll see. Anything else for me?
No, I just want to thank you for a great year of collaboration. I agree with you wholeheartedly that it's come together, the finance department and with Ms. Pullman and our collaborative meetings. It's just, I'm really proud of it. So,
Thank you.
And thank you for, your part in that.
Thank you. And happy holidays to everyone.
Yeah. All right, next up is citizen input. Does anybody signed up?
One, Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Of course I signed up.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. It's a pleasure to be here and seeing all of you tonight. I'm here on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce predominantly, so I might go closer to my 5 minutes than my 3 minutes, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I have 3 things to talk about. The first is a program that is really getting underway here called Community Heart and Soul. And I know many of you have heard a bit about it, but I wanted to tell you from a chamber perspective, and I what I'm starting to already see happen, this is a program that I think is going to take off like a rocket ship in 2023. I'm going to just read one little tiny paragraph here, so those of you who don't know about it get a little sense of what it is, and then I've got a few things to add to that. But Community Heart and Soul is a resident-driven process that engages all the residents of a town in identifying what they love most about their community and the future of the community and how to achieve it. It's a four-phase process that brings the community together to make our town a better place to live, work, and play. And that really is the essence of what this is. And it's a tried and true national program that's been implemented across the United States in many towns, very much like Colonial Beach. And I'm really excited to tell you that we had a little testing the waters meeting and we kind of set it up through the Alliance and got the word out to a few people that we thought are key volunteers in town that would want to give their input to this. And we had to cut it off. We had room for 30 people and we had stretched it to 34 over in the community center. We had representatives from Community Heart and Soul. Their executive director personally came, as well as some of his staff, and they were blown away by the engagement and the reception that they got from the citizens of this town already. And we've made some, I think, really good progress in a short period of time. We already had so much enthusiasm from this that we had a second kind of training and meeting in early December following up from the November bigger meeting. So that's how interested people are. We've identified a leadership team. I've been kind of designated as the spokesperson for that leadership team. We've got 7 people that you all know and love in town here that are kind of helping drive this process to get it to the phase 1. It's a 4-phase project that will take place over an 18 to 24 month period of time. We're actually using the Alliance as one of our main vehicles for getting the word out because it represents, about roughly 19 NGOs. And so this is a great way for us to get word out to a great diversity across the community about what the program is. One of the first things that we have to do to get this off the ground is to apply for a seed grant through the actual organization itself. And they give us $10,000 if we raise $10,000. And I'm really happy to say, with very little effort, we've already raised almost $5,000. We've gotten half of it done from between the chamber and downtown Colonial Beach and downtown Colonial Beach, the Chamber of Commerce, and a personal donation. We have just about $5,000 and we've got word that we're getting a bit more, and we've got some fundraising activities set up for January and February. I think that will easily get us to that $10,000. The foundation has agreed to be the fiduciary for this, so the money will flow through the chamber that comes in and be dispersed. I'm sorry, not the chamber, the foundation, come in through the foundation and be dispersed out through the foundation. The one thing that we need, and why I wanted to speak to you about it tonight, is that we need some letters of support to go in with our grant application. And I'd like to sincerely ask the council tonight to consider doing a resolution or writing a letter of support. There's no financial commitment on the part of the town at all. We're just asking for basically your moral support for the citizens of this town coming together and driving this program. I think it ties in very nicely what Mr. Truitt was talking about earlier, and it dovetails perfectly with the Community Foundation's mission statement and whatnot as well. So what we really want to do is get a diverse set of people throughout of our community getting involved in town events and really starting to have their voices heard, so that we can then provide back to the town what the citizens want to see, what their priorities are, and how we can all work together as a community to kind of quell the negativity and move forward with all the positive things that we want to see happen here. So in a nutshell, that is it. We are more than happy to provide additional information training. I've got something I'll give to Heather here for each of you that has a QR code where you can look up. There's a nice 10-page brochure that you can click on and go and see, as well as our one-pager that we've put together and a little bit about where we are in the process so far. So that's Community Heart and Soul. We have identified some next steps to complete the grant application, ask for letters of support, including one from the town here. We are going to get our talking points down so that it becomes specific for Colonial Beach, develop what our mission statement is and what our vision is for the town, and then continue to bring awareness first through the Alliance, but then more broadly through events that will start taking place through the spring time period. We've been publicizing this at the monthly meet and greets, and we'll continue to use all of the public events here in town to try and create more and more awareness and engagement. But I really want to emphasize that it really is citizen-driven, and that we're not necessarily asking for resources from the town, just your moral support behind it. So that's it on that. I wanted to also quickly let you know a couple of other things. The VTC grant that the chamber had applied for the Bike Fest, I've submitted the final report for that. It got approved yesterday, and our check for that $20,000 is coming. So we're thrilled about that. And they have announced that they are going to offer these event grants again for 2023. So it's our intention to partner with the Community Foundation and the chamber to go after as many of these as we can. If the town is interested in participating with us again, we could get as many of 3 of these instead of just the 2 that we got this year. So I'll leave that up to, I'll talk to JC and see if there's interest in the town participating again. And the final thing I wanted to mention is that we are completely, this is the Economic Development Committee hat that I'm wearing, supportive of Kelly Efko's plan that she presented. We had our EDC meeting last week, and we are in total agreement and want to support all 6 of her major goals. We will write and draft our specific action item goals that will support all 6 of her goals going into 2023. And with that, I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and look forward to an amazing year ahead for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else for citizen? Okay. Is there anybody else that'd like to come up? Okay. All right, we'll keep moving forward. Old business, we have several public hearings on the agenda. Each public hearing is related to a specific item. So we'll try to keep track of those as we go through this. First is the Ordinance 736, amendment to the Town of Colonial Beach zoning ordinance, which is the zoning ordinance, not the town code, Article 7, Article 8, and Article 9. And do we have, is Darla on? She's on the phone.
Yes, Darla's here to read us in. Darla, go ahead.
Okay, Madam Mayor, members of council, Ms. Adams Jacobs, you have a public hearing this evening. It's zoning ordinance amendment 03-2022. They are amendments to the zoning ordinance, Articles 7, 8, and 9. The proposed amendments would add mobile vending courtyards with approval of a conditional use in the resort commercial RC district, the general commercial C1 district, and the commercial residential CR zoning districts. The Planning Commission and staff are recommending adding this use to the ordinance in these districts with the approval of a conditional use that would allow evaluations of standards with each of the cases as they come forward. The zoning ordinance defines the mobile vending courtyards as privately owned parcels where one or more mobile vending vehicles is located for the purpose of retail sales. It does not include vehicle storage. The other part of the amendment to these 3 articles is relative to reorganization and general text edits. These edits alphabetize permitted uses, clarify terms, and renumber sections that we found needed to be renumbering. These would ease the understanding of the ordinance, the application of it, and the interpretation. And there were 2 amendments that were made that you see in your articles This was prior to your last meeting in Articles 8 and 9, and those were to correct typos that were in those sections. At their meeting, the Planning Commission, after their public hearing, they voted unanimously to recommend approval of the amendments to the zoning ordinance articles as presented by staff. There were 4 people at the Planning Commission's meeting who spoke in support of the ordinance amendments. Staff recommends that the council, after your public hearing, approve the amendments to the zoning ordinance articles 7, 8, and 9 as presented by staff. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Darla. We're gonna open it for the public hearing.
We already had the public.
Oh, we already had it last time. Okay, so it's just for the vote. I saw like 4 or 5 public hearing pages up there, but those are for the next item. All right, is there any questions for Ms. Orr on this item? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the changes as recommended?
So moved.
For the second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion?
I'm not sure if everybody in the audience knows, but about, I don't know, 10 months ago, I did a presentation before council and public regarding food trucks and made, a lot of suggestions and said that we needed to consider allowing them on private property, but also have rules and regulations, come up with, how we want the program to look. And Kenny and I even had meetings with town staff and discussed, some of our concerns, things that we'd like to see with the program. And to me, it seems like pretty much all that's been thrown out the window. And all we're getting now is we're allowing them, basically a food truck court is 1 or more food trucks. So we can have food trucks anywhere in town as long as they're authorized by a conditional use permit. And so basically, when we approve a permit, I don't know if we're going to have it expire at some point. I don't know, are they going to be allowed in parking lots? Are they going to be allowed 100 in town or 2? There's really no guidance. So to me, I feel like this is putting the cart before the horse. I do support having them on private property, and I've even discussed with the chamber president, and I believe he agrees with me that we need rules. And so I'd like to see the rules first before I approve to have these placed on private property throughout town. And that's just my opinion. I know probably the rest of the council doesn't agree, so, but just wanted to state my opinion for the public.
Yes, Dr. Salzler.
So, could I ask our attorney to comment on this? Is it normal to put rules in with a zoning ordinance, or is that something that happens when the permit is approved?
Well, I looked at this and I was asked to review it. I looked at it from a legal standpoint, and it was well done from that standpoint, which is very rare for me. I had no comments. I only had a question as to whether or not mobile vending courtyards had been defined, because that's not in these changes that are before you, but apparently that had been done a month or 2 ago, perhaps longer. And so that was in preparation for this, but I see nothing legally in this that strikes me as unusual. It seems like more like a policy question, and I haven't been privy, being new to this, as to what the idea is for providing more guidance that Mr. Widge wishes to see. So I would have to defer to the town manager or staff to answer that question.
So at this point, the guidelines that we currently have are still in place. With respect to the mobile vending courtyard, that is something that the previous town attorney and former planning director discussed, I think, at length. There were obviously some steps, and I will defer to Ms. Orr, as she said through many of the planning commission meetings, and the discussions as it relates to the specific private uses, which I think is the matter before us today. Our program on the town side has not changed. Obviously, we know that we will need to be flexible in the coming year as all sorts of things are changing in the market with construction. But at this time, we've constructed a space on Town Hill. That program is still established. There's been no proposed changes to that other than what we changed administratively, that Ms. Riviere and Mr. Duke brought last week. And that's all I have at this time.
Ms. Johnson?
So sitting through a lot of those planning commission meetings myself, and discussing with the town manager, being a previous vendor myself, working with a lot of the vendors, Mr. Duke, with the applications, that kind of stuff, discussing those, doing an unbelievable amount of research on other areas, other vendor programs, other courtyards. We had a presentation by Mr. Fitzpatrick a while back about the one that he went to, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the location that it was, but anyways, the courtyard piece of this is to allow it in our ordinance. I'm pretty much sure that the people that attended the planning commission meetings and all the planning commission individuals agreed to that. I think the policies or the procedures or whatever guidelines that we set can be flushed out. I mean, this is a new program. You know, we start small, work our way up, identify that, but you know, in order to get there, we have to approve this. And with the additions to the boardwalk from the Dotson program for projects and the additional spaces that the vendors could be placed other than just Town Hill, we have to address the here and now, and we can work on those through the cup to address any issues that we may have. You know, we can set timelines. You know, you can have it for 1 year, see how it works out. We can change it to 3 years, whatever it may be. That way we can fine tune it along the way, you know, to benefit the town, not only just for the businesses, but for the residents that and visitors that will be coming here looking for food options other than just our brick and mortars. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is Darla still on the phone? Darla, these amendments to zoning ordinance to allow the mobile vending courtyard, it's not for a blanket for the whole town, is that correct? Could you hear me?
The question was, did they amend the,
It only allows it in certain districts, is that correct?
yes, sir. Yes, ma'am, excuse me. It would be in the 3 districts.
Which are commercial, resort commercial, and commercial residential.
Yes, ma'am.
And it also requires a conditional use permit, which has a $800 fee, and unfortunately for most of our applicants, about a 3-month process. Sometimes 2. In that cut process, what are some of the conditions? Give me some examples of conditions that can be defined during the cut process.
Well, the ordinance does provide guidance on, you know, when you have a conditional use permit before you. The ordinance provides guidance at items that you would look at. And basically, when you have a use that comes in under a conditional use, it's a use that the ordinance recognizes that may be appropriate in a district with certain conditions attached to it that might mitigate any impact. So certain things that we would look at would be, for instance, lighting, perhaps hours of operation, look at, you know, distances from adjacent properties, potentially noise, ensuring that there's access is appropriate. So those are some of the things that we would look at with a plan that would come in with a mobile vending courtyard to assure that it doesn't impact the adjacent area, that it fits in the character of that particular area. You know, looking at your boardwalk, you know, Town Hill is different than the area that's down near where the Dotson's development's going. So this would allow you the flexibility to create standards that might work in one area that might not be the same in another area. And I think that as these cases come forward, we will begin to have a set of standards or conditions rather that come forward with these cases that will then be a good example when you decide to amend the ordinance to set standards.
So we can add standards, approving this as things come forward, can continue to add standards to the language.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I have one other question for you about this, and it's about how to treat these courtyards with a principal structure and accessory structures. Is the cut process going to allow the flexibility to have no principal structure or to have multiple accessory structures? Or how exactly is that, since it's not a building, but rather multiple smaller mobile?
Right, so you're talking about, as that relates to the standards in the ordinance for setbacks, or
Yeah.
are you speaking of, yeah, so, well, one of the, we would look at that as if the use itself is the principal use of the property. And so with that, there would be a difference in, if it's one unit that's coming in, or if it's a 5-unit courtyard that's coming in. And so we'll look at those on a case-by-case basis to establish, appropriate and safe distances from adjacent uses, parking spaces, those types of things.
Okay. Is there more discussion? Yes, Ms. Williams?
Darla, a question for you. Can a parking lot be considered a food court or a vendor court? If a business owner came to us and said, I'm gonna be a food court, I've got one truck, and I wanna put it in my parking lot, can we allow that?
If that person owns the property, they can certainly make that application. So the property owner would make the application, and it could be on a portion of the property that is a parking lot. What we would look at in that case is to ensure that there are no other standards of the ordinance, like parking or access, that would be interrupted by this food court or by the food truck that would be going in the parking area.
And also, is it true that we could have, say, 10 food truck courts in town potentially, and every one of them have a little bit different rules, so there may not be any exact standards? Say we do one this year, and then we do 2 next year, and then 4 years down the road, and keep finding things that we need to tweak. But once a CUP is in place, unless we amend that somehow, that's the conditions that are laid out for that specific court, correct?
We would, yes, sir, we would, and one of the suggestions that has come forward is that as you start this out, you issue the approval for the conditional use for a certain period of time, whether that's 12 months, 24 months, so that as these begin to crop up, if you will, around the town, and other conditions may come to light as more of these are operating, then you would be able to go back to, within that time period, 1 year, 18 months, 2 years, to the initial people who came in. And as they renew their conditional use, if you found that there are other issues, for instance, how they handle their waste or something like that, then you could add those conditions in upon renewal. And if during that period of time the town establishes a full set of standards that work for all, and if that happens and decide to make them by right in certain circumstances subject to certain standards, then that person that had the conditional use permit before, if they can comply with those new standards, would not have to make that application for a conditional use permit in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay. We have a motion on the floor. I'm going to do the roll call vote then. I don't hear any other discussion. I'll start this way. Ms. Clement? Aye. Mr. Moncur?
Aye.
Ms. Robertson?
Aye.
Dr. Sullivan? Aye. Mr. Williams?
Nay.
Mr. Allison?
Aye.
And I vote aye. All right. Next up is, this one is a public hearing. Okay. Keep me straight over here. I'm in holiday mode, singing jingle bells up here. All right. Resolution 5322, Colonial Beach Volunteer Rescue Squad, lease of town-owned property. And I have the town manager reading us into this. That's right. We had it on our discussion, but the advertisement had to take a certain amount of time before the public hearing.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Included in your council packet is a council paper with a resolution to authorize us to enter into a ground lease with the Colonial Beach Rescue Squad. And we have Father Nick here who will speak briefly on the proposed plan for the rescue squad. And there are some graphics that we'll pull up on the screen. And then we'll entertain any public comment on this matter. Last meeting, we did discuss this briefly. Some of you may remember this has been an item on the council's priorities, and then the strategic action plan to assist the rescue squad with relocation from their current location to 700 Colonial. My staff, myself and my staff, including Public Works, have been working over the last year or so with assisting them with this item. So we're very excited to bring this for you before you today. So Father Nicholas, as you come on up.
Good evening, Mayor Schick and members of council and Town Manager Adams Jacobs. Thank you very much for that introduction. I'm Father Nick Sabota, Rector of St. Mary's Episcopal Church here in Colonial Beach, speaking as president of the Colonial Beach Volunteer Rescue Squad. I was before the council at the work session 2 weeks ago to speak about this matter, and simply want to just highlight the rescue squad's thanks to the town for the support of our general operations and for support of the idea of a rescue center and a rescue squad continuing to operate within the town boundaries of Colonial Beach. And this lease and the opportunity to construct the building, a rendering of which you see before you on the screen, is something that will better enable us to accomplish that mission. Our current building on its current location is not ideal if we're going to continue to grow, attract new members, and be able to provide further coverage with transport units that will serve the citizens of Colonial Beach. As was said last time, there's issues with flooding, black mold, and an inability to have occupancy in the current building. The current building would provide the opportunity for overnight occupancy, which will allow for increased staffing, is the hope. And will also be a space that's more conducive to use by the community for community events. We've engaged in a process of determining how we're going to raise funds for this. We're grateful for the $82,000 that's been set aside through sales through Dotson, and that is currently being held by the town for us. We do have investments available, but are attempting not to access those so that they can be there to continue to support the future of the squad. And so we're prepared to do some fairly significant fundraising to raise approximately initially $330,000 that we will need to put down in order to acquire financing toward the $1.5 million that is necessary for the total project of the building. So I want to thank once again the town, the council, and everyone who's been involved for their support of the squad and for your consideration. And I will be happy to answer any questions that may come forward to the best of my ability.
All right, thank you. We will open it up to a public hearing now. Is
Shall I
anybody-
step down for
Yeah,
the
just, but stay close by, just in case. Is there anybody signed up to the public hearing?
Mr. Tribbett.
Oh, Mr. Tribbett. Well, I have to open, I think I have to open it with a time. The public hearing is open at 7:09 PM.
Tim Trivet, 3407 Wakefield Street. I think I can also speak on behalf of the 200 to 300 people that showed up at the Board of Supervisors meeting when the battle was on to fight to keep this rescue squad in Colonial Beach. This is a great thing. And I believe that everything that the squad is able to do relieves the burden from the county. They have 2 squads now in Oak Grove, and they're covering Westmoreland Shores and Placid Bay. They also still cover Colonial Beach. But I think that the efforts that's been put forth with the Volunteer Rescue Squad is commendable. And I really believe they're going to grow and that they're going to be able to extend the amount of time that they volunteer. But, you know, any opportunity that they can respond to something, and we still have Pat responded to almost everything in town, still is assisting somebody in need. And I strongly feel like that squad's been around a long time. And it's unlike the other 2 squads down the county that was ready to fold because they didn't have the people. This squad wants to continue and wants to make a positive impact on our town. And I truly believe that it does on a frequent basis. So I would hope that you'll approve this. I know you will. I'm confident of that. And I look forward to working with the squad in the future and watching them grow and do great things for our community and public service. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else signed up for public comment? Anybody like to speak? Okay. All right, we'll close public comment at 7:11. 7:11. I did not do that. Okay, do I have a motion to approve resolution 5322, Queen Beach Volunteer Rescue Squad lease of town?
I move that we approve resolution 55-22.
I knew you were gonna make that motion.
Second.
Second. All right, is there further discussion?
And we need the parking.
And we need the parking use. Is there any other further discussion? Yes, Mr. Ridley.
It's, first off, I want to say I definitely support this and I think it's a great thing for the town. But also as a council member and representing the people, I have to watch out for their best interests as well. So I just wanted to ask the town attorney and town manager. I see we have some protections in here. You know, God willing, this thing goes through and lasts 40 years. But my concern is, what if it doesn't? I know there's something in here that says the property goes to the town if there is some sort of default, but I also know that a bank's not going to loan $1.5 million to somebody, and then if they default, say, okay, you town can have this building and keep the property. So what are the protections just in case for the people of Colonial?
I'm not sure I follow what you're saying as far as the.
Okay, say hypothetically the rescue squad doesn't survive 40 more years. They're leasing the property from the town for $1 a year. The bank's going to loan them money based on credit and probably most likely the building as collateral. So if the rescue squad defaulted, the bank's going to want their money back. Who's going to pay the bank, or is the bank going to seize the building that sits on top of town property?
Well, that's a good point, and that's how the collateral works. I mean, there are certain circumstances where there can be leases where the town or the locality don't own the property, but they still have to secure the loan. This is a situation where you do own the property, and there will be the financing that will, I guess, secure the property. So if there is default, then
I want to clarify though, because I'm not sure Stephanie's knows, the rescue squad is its own unique entity, which is leasing property from the town. The town is not applying for the loan.
correct.
Okay, just want to make sure.
But the assumption is that there's been no finance discussions that, is this working?
Yeah, just get a little closer.
Yeah, I think you just have to talk directly into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
There you go.
Whoa. Yeah, okay. I'm not used to these really close ones, but in any event, no, it's a good question. And, we haven't been privy, to my knowledge, to the financing, but they will want collateral, I'm sure. So you do have to go out this with the understanding that the town property will be likely collateral for this. And if there is a default, then I think you're exactly right. So I don't know any way you could get around that other than specifying that the property can't be used as collateral. But I don't know, again, this is one I walked into, so I don't know all the background. What I did do on this is, I know there is a current lease on, I think it's Dennison Street. I don't know all my streets yet. That one springs to mind. I know that expires at the end of sometime in 2024. I think the idea is that this will be complete and the move will happen. But when I inherited this, it wasn't understood that this would be a different parcel. So I worked with staff to get the plat that carved out, I think 700 Colonial is what it is. And that's not all the property the town owns, but that's the property that's subject to this lease. And then many safeguards were put in with respect to what can be built, the fact that the town would still own it, and all the things that had to be approved by the town that the rescue squad wants to do. And then it's contemplated that there will be financing, but what's not in there is that this property wouldn't be used for the collateral. But if it is, and I assume it is, the town would have to sign off on that, because the rescue squad wouldn't have the ability to give a deed of trust on the property. The town would have to do that. So, there are definitely some interesting financing issues. The bottom line, I think, is that the town either has to be prepared, depending on what the financing is, to either assume the loan and save the property and keep the building if there is a default, or simply say, we are willing to allow this property to go away if that's what happens. So again, I don't know if those discussions have been had previously, but that's a very good question at this point. Did that address what you were asking?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So I'm not a lawyer. I did have about 15 years experience in real estate. And I want to address this to Father Nick, because he probably has a better handle on the discussions with the bank. That is the bank asking for a deed of trust on the property, or are they only asking for the leasehold rights that you have as collateral?
Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. The banks with whom we've had conversation at this point have not asked for the property as collateral specifically. So I don't have a direct yes on that. I don't know that they might not. The other thing I will add is that while it's not property that would be conducive to building a rescue station, Colonial Beach Volunteer Rescue Squad does own property within the town limits. Within this past year, we were given a gift of 2 plots on the 14th Street Estate area of town, which is not a place where we could build a rescue station because there's no sewer, no water access, no road access. The 13th, 14th, and 15th streets do not exist, even though the land is there. And so there is the possibility of using that land as collateral should we need to. And I have been in conversation with the family that deeded us those 2 lots and that donated those 2 lots. And there's a possibility of donations of other land in that area that may support this effort.
So would that mean, bottom line, if the bank wanted to put a deed of trust on the town property that we're leasing to you, the town would have to approve that?
Understood.
And we could at that time choose not to.
Yes, understood. Yeah.
I will say that one of the points of discussion throughout this process, just to be clear, because nobody's forgotten when 300 of us showed up down in the county, is to put in as much protections for continued emergency services within town limits as possible. And that part of the agreement and discussions between the rescue squad and the town have been that to best protect the facility and the investment is for the town to hold the lease to the property, because there cannot be seizure by a county of any town-owned property. And so ultimately, by it still being town property, but leasing it to them for $1 protects both them and the town to maintain a facility that is capable of emergency services within town limits. And that has been a very important part of the negotiation. Yeah.
This involves not quite a half acre of town property that we're not utilizing at this point anyway, number one. Number two, as I sit on this council, there's no more important function than the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Colonial Beach. No greater function in this organization is critical to that.
I think that pretty much sums it up. Okay. All right, do we have a motion and a second? Is there any further discussion at this point? Okay, I'll start on this side this time.
Aye.
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 And aye. Very excited. All right, now get your checkbooks out for the rescue squad. You can make a donation this year, in this tax year, and in next tax year. Look at that. All right, public hearing on ordinance 737, amending or repealing all or portions of chapter 13.1 license, article 3 vendors and peddlers on municipal property of Colonial Beach Town Code of Ordinance. Mr. J.C., would you like to read us into this?
Yes. Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. J.C. Lervier, Interim Director of Community Development and Zoning. I'm here today to follow up on a discussion that occurred at the last council meeting, the work session, where staff, myself, and Mr. Duke, who does operate the vendor and peddler program for the town on town-owned property. We presented several administrative and operational issues that are presented to staff through the use of the ordinance to govern the program, and presented a course of action to potentially resolve all of those and make it easier for council, staff, and vendors, while still ensuring that the town helps provide this amenity to residents and visitors. And I think that's all I'm saying. Generally, I would like to say a few more things, but that's a good background for the public hearing.
Sure. All right, do we have anybody signed up for the public hearing?
2 people. First is Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to open the public hearing at 7:22. And who is first?
Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Mr. Fitzpatrick. No? Yeah,
I'm sorry, I thought I was signing up for the
never mind.
other one, so.
Totally understand. Okay.
Mr. Nelson.
Mr. Nelson? Was that also the same? Okay, all right. Apologize for the confusion. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on it? Okay. I keep inviting y'all up. All right, 7:23, we're gonna close public hearing. All right, do you want to further elaborate? You want us to do a motion second and open for discussion?
You just open it up.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion for ordinance 737 amending? Well, right now the motion would be, the staff recommendation is to repeal chapter 13.1 and transfer authority regarding administration of the town's vendor and peddler program to the town manager.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second to that?
Second.
All right, is there further discussion on this? Yes, Ms. Williams?
Yeah, just a question for JC. Since we're repealing this, and this is basically our rules regulating the food truck program on municipal properties, what are we replacing this with? Do you have anything in writing or proposal, or are we just saying, okay, we'll get rid of the rules and you can come back later and maybe make a proposal?
So the intent of staff and the proposal moving forward is to, rather than govern the program with the ordinance, govern it with simply the permit application. which will serve as a contract between the two parties. So basically, all the same requirements will be in there. It'll just be one document. And so right now, how it works is when someone comes in to fill out an application, we do the application, and then they're handed a copy of the ordinance. And so they're kind of left looking at both, trying to figure out what they're supposed to do. One document that's a contract would have all the requirements in there and also give rise to any enforcement mechanisms should the town ever need to use them. In the same exact way an ordinance would, just a different source of the authority, and which is much easier to use without having a meeting and a public hearing every time something needs to change. And I'll just use this to say the one thing I wanted to point out. One particular operational issue that I saw in reviewing this is that for one-time vendor permits, the town manager is allowed to do to pick a different date, but is limited to only holiday weekends. So we can't do a one-time vending location on a weekend that is not a holiday weekend as it stands. So to facilitate off-season business, a good option would be come up with a one-time vendor situation that could work for just a one night that isn't a holiday. So that's the kind of flexibility we're looking for that currently we cannot do without a meeting and a public hearing. We really want to facilitate business, make it easier for everyone, and move forward.
It would work more like our special event application process, which is just a contract application with the town and not the code. Okay. Yes, is there further question?
Oh, is this something that will come before council, or does council have any approval authority on this at all?
The intent is to remove the council's authority over this program, to put it in the town manager's office to avoid having to have these discussions. But if council did want to offer direction, they could simply do it in your one-on-one meetings with the town manager, rather than having a meeting and a public hearing to implement those changes.
Okay. So like, for example, currently, the current contract, or the current ordinance allows the town manager to pay for some of the electricity for the vendor. And so she could essentially, whatever agreement she wants, she can have them pay all of it or none of it, have a meter. Would be all that would be up to manager's discretion.
Yes, which it currently is under the ordinance already. So that would not be a major change.
Okay.
Right.
Is there further discussion? Merry Christmas? Okay, Mr. Howard.
So JC, basically the information that we have already in our vendor program will just transpose over to the town manager's discretion of abiding by these current guidelines, essentially, and it would just be not have to be addressed every single time if we need to change the season, if we need to change locations, if we got to change anything.
Right. For instance, an operational issue that's coming up in a week is, according to the ordinance, we are required to accept applications by January 2nd and take fees. And right now, we don't really know what the vendor program could look like in this year with the construction coming up in the area. We're gonna have to be as flexible as possible to facilitate business. So yes, but to answer your question, yes, most of, if not all of the requirements will be in the contracted permit. But again, it's just gonna make all of it easier for everybody. I don't know if that answers your question specifically.
Except for the town manager that has to deal with all.
Well, or designate. So, yeah.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
I would just like to ask the town manager if she'd like to comment on it. Okay.
I think this obviously provides some clarity, like Ms. Riviere mentioned, as well as Mr. Duke, who has really been the one who's been instrumental in working through some of the flexibility in the last year and meeting with the stakeholders, particularly our food truck vendors and tellers as well. And as he mentioned last year, he has been very successful in bringing in additional revenue in this program. So I think that it's a matter that we can continue to handle administratively and be flexible, as we've all mentioned, some of the things that will be coming forward in 2023. So I have most of the authority to be flexible anyway, but I think this makes it a bit cleaner.
Okay. I just say that I think that overall it's going to reduce bureaucracy, which I like about it, and be business friendly and create a more effective and efficient government. And not micromanage management programs at the council level. All right, is there any further discussion? Okay, we'll do a vote then. I'll go this side and switch it up.
Aye.
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 Somebody had to leave the last day.
I will let her, she can leave on the last one, or we got one more. All right, ordinance 738, disposition of town and real property adjoining 753 7th Street. This is the public hearing for it, yes, correct. Is Stephanie into it? What?
Yeah, this is a public hearing for what we have now retermed a deed of bargain and sale and of consolidation for property that the town owns adjacent to property that Ms. Kennedy owns. And the Virginia Code section 15.2, 1800 requires whenever the town is disposing of property of this nature, that there be a public hearing and a vote by town council. And if the town approves this, the deed provides at the same time for the town to sell the property for $2,700, which is a figure that comes from an appraisal of the property, which is a good thing for you to base the price on. And secondly, it will consolidate this property from the town into the existing property, Ms. Kennedy's, which already has a parcel number. There is no parcel number for this property that the town owns. So this vacation will become part of the parcel that she already has. And importantly, and understand there are some utility easements on the property, and Ms. Giles was keen to make sure that those got reserved in any conveyance to Ms. Kennedy. So that's also in the deed that's before you.
Okay. We'll open the public hearing. 7:31 p.m. Anybody here to speak? Okay, close the public hearing at 7:32 p.m. All right. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we'll open up for discussion. Any discussion? Is Miss Kennedy even, is she here? No? Okay. When did this issue start? Do you remember how long back this goes?
It predated me, but it was definitely my first week on the job, but I think it goes back.
I think it goes back a year before.
Maybe a year or so before that.
5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 5,000 years. I know I was not implying that. Yeah.
I would suggest that we need to look at this procedurally so we can expedite these matters. And I probably should disclose, I was at Montrose one day looking to do a base title on Colonial Beach. I didn't necessarily run out of the clerk's office screaming, but it is a rat's nest if ever there was one. And I don't know how many of these little parcels are, but these are parcels that don't really serve the town any purpose. And if we could put them on the tax rolls, would be to our benefit.
I agree wholeheartedly. The part of the frustration from what I've seen over and over again, not just particular Ms. Kennedy's, which hasn't actually been resolved, is clean and clear title. And it just keeps getting stuck in clean and clear title, which I don't have the authority to deem clean and clear title. So we always have to find a way to navigate that.
Well, what we're doing here and what we've talked about leading up to this is just quit claiming whatever interest we have. We had this issue with the very successful Eleanor Park situation that had a similar title concern that Mr. Montour pointed out. And these issues go back to the beginning of time. And we were able to resolve that because JC is a really good lawyer. And we found some case law and we used that and were able to get a title commitment for that property. I say that only because if push came to shove on all these properties, the town owns them. No one else possibly has a claim because of how long the town has had an interest in the property. And some things weren't done long before all of our times combined. But because of the way things have played out, the town absolutely is the only entity or person that has an interest in all of these properties. But that might
Not necessarily, and I will tell you, that's a case-by-case basis sometimes.
well, you know more than I do, which is frequently the case. But let me preface it, from what I've seen
Right.
on all these properties that I've been given to look at, I believe the logic that governed the case law that JC found for Eleanor Park applies to what I've seen. So I don't know what you've seen, and I guess we can talk about that offline, but for Kennedy and the others we've talked about conveying, I don't think there are any problems at all. However, the way for this town and any other body to do this is to quit claiming. And all you're saying is, you have everything we have. We are giving up everything we have in this property and it's all yours. And if it's a whole lot of stuff, that's great. If it's not, we're giving you everything we have and we're confident that we have what we have. So that's how we're doing it, and we don't have any concerns when we convey it that way. It's perfectly legal and it's understood. That's what Kennedy calls for.
Sounds like we finally have a team that can navigate through these situations. It has not been that level of confidence to navigating it in our prior administrations, I should say. And I think people just want to act with caution, when you're sitting in a seat and there's concern of liability, and that's why it's held a lot of this up, is the concern for caution. Not any particular person or anything, but that general concept. I say that because it applies to so many other instances. So anyway, I'm glad that we have a team that has found new avenues in that direction. Okay, is there any further discussion? Yes, Mr.
So I know we talked about this kind of as a test case when we were going through it with Ms. Kennedy. I know there's some other inquiries. I think there was another one at the same time as Ms. Kennedy's and maybe a few others in town. When are we going to address those? Are we going to move forward with that process, or are we?
Let's talk about that at our strategic planning meeting and see if we want to create a calendar for it and see if that's something we want to prioritize tackling in the next year.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds good. Ellery, make sure you note that down for our strategic. Any other discussion on this? Okay, I'll do a roll call vote. I'm going to start with you, Ms. Clement. Aye. All right, Mr. Moncur.
Aye.
Ms. Robertson. Aye. All right, Dr. Sullivan. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
And aye. All right, that's it for the open part of the meeting. I'm gonna read us into closed session. We will take a 10-minute recess between the two. I'd like to make a motion that the town council of the town of Plain Beach, Virginia convene and close meeting for the following purpose and to discuss the following subjects, all of which are exempt by Virginia law from public meeting requirements as indicated, namely pursuant to Virginia code. Hold on, can you just let me get through this real quick? And then you can, yeah. 2.23711A7, consultation with legal counsel pertaining to actual litigation where consultation over a meeting would adversely affect the town's litigating posture regarding the town of Plain Beach versus Westmoreland County, and pursuant to Virginia Code 2.23711A8, consultation with legal counsel regarding the following matter requiring the provision of legal advice from the Regional Criminal Justice Training Academy. Do I have a motion? So moved. Second. All in favor? Aye. All right, 10-minute recess. We'll come back in. Thank you.